Now we start this hour in Europe, and Russia's defense ministry has said that its forces carried out strikes on energy facilities and port infrastructure that it claimed were being used by the Ukrainian military. The attacks triggered massive power outages across parts of Ukraine, disrupting electricity supplies in several regions. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskiy has strongly criticized the strikes, saying there was no military justification for targeting energy infrastructure and civilian services. Zelensky has also warned that ongoing diplomatic efforts must not slow down the delivery of air defense systems to Ukraine, stressing that stronger air defenses are essential to protect the country from continued Russian attacks. Joining us now to discuss this is Ben Aris, a former Moscow bureau chief, and he joins us live from Berlin. Thank you very much, Ben. As always, it's a pleasure to talk to you. Today's developments, of course, reports have said that over 1 million people have been left without hot water and heating in the Dnipropetrovsk region as a consequence for these strikes. How credible is it that Russia's claims that it targeted facilities only used by the Ukrainian military?
Not very credible at all, is it? I mean, they keep hitting civilian targets. Apartment blocks in Kiev are regularly targeted and killing civilians, old people, pensioners, children. What's going on here is that there is a campaign by Russia in order to denigrate the infrastructure, the power, the heating, the transport, in order to increase the economic pressure on the population and then push Zelensky towards a ceasefire deal. And so they've been raining down since the summer, been raining down hundreds of drones and missiles every day, taking these assets out. And now we're into deep winter. I think the campaign is actually being escalated because the temperatures are freezing, and as the bulk of the Ukrainian population live in Soviet-era apartment blocks, you can't heat those buildings without the power and heating because it's all provided centrally. So, the Ukrainians are making the point that they're only hitting military targets, specifically oil refineries, and the Russians are making the same claim in order to keep, some pretense of moral high ground, whereas it's simply not true.
Ben, of course, we're now in the midst of a harsh European winter. These strikes must have considerable impacts on morale. What's it like on both sides? Is there war fatigue? Of course, in February, this war will hit 4 years old.
Of course, there is war fatigue. The polls show in both Kiev and Moscow that people are getting tired of the war. However, it's very different. The Russians, Putin still has 85% popularity. The bulk of the people think the country's going in the right direction. In Russia, the fatigue is such that the people are saying, look, we've already achieved everything that we needed to achieve in Ukraine, and so you can stop here. I think in Kiev it's much harsher. The people have been, for the last 2 years, there were air defense ammo enough to keep cities like Kiev safe. And now they're running out of that defense ammo. People are overnighting pretty much every night in metro stations. And against that, the Ukrainians have been incredibly brave and resilient. And so while people are tired of the war, the latest poll says that 75% of them would rather continue to fight than cede any unoccupied territory to Russia. So it's going to continue. There's no sort of groundswell of fatigue or dissatisfaction to the point where either government is feeling any pressure from their people to end the war.
And Ben, what are the current capabilities of the Ukrainian air defense? Of course, the United States is sending them air defense, Patriot air defense systems paid for by European allies. What is the current state of that?
There's not enough. There are holes now appearing in the air defense. And on top of that, you've got the new Russian tactic where they've ramped up drone and missile production. Both of those have doubled. And so the air defenses, even if they were adequate before, are now simply getting overwhelmed. What Russia does is it fires like hundreds of drones, and then half an hour later, it fires another 100 drones. and you simply use up the ammo. And then once you've softened up the defensive with several waves of drones, then you send in the extremely powerful, highly accurate missiles, and those can only be brought down by Patriot missiles. So the effect is twofold. One is to make the hulls of one of these missiles hits its high-value target, but at the same time, it's simply attrition. It's simply using up Ukraine's ammo, of which there is a limited amount. And like you said, the States has a huge stockpile, but it's not sending any of that to Ukraine, and it's reliant on the stocks that come from its European partners, or what they can buy. And there's a huge backlog in the States in production of Patriot missile ammo in particular. I mean, the rayon that makes them just announced it was going to treble it from 600 a year to 2,000, but even that won't fill the gap of orders that are already on the books. And Ukraine has defense for now, and it will stop most of the damage, but incrementally more and more damage is being done. And as this goes on, and people are talking about another 2 years, they're simply going to run out, and then the skies will be open to Russian attacks.
And Ben, where are we on the diplomatic front? Of course, just a couple of days ago, we saw that huge meeting in Paris with Ukrainian allies, along with US envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, along with the President Donald Trump now allowing a bipartisan sanctions bill targeting countries doing business with Russia to move forward in Congress. Are we closer diplomatically at all to seeing peace in the Eastern Europe?
Talks are ongoing. A lot of progress, real progress is made in December, and we're now down to the Russian proposed 27-point plan and Zelensky's counter-offer 20-point plan, and he's been talking to both sides. The 20-point plan, the Kremlin's pretty much going to reject that out of hand. They still want their own version, the 27-point plan. Zelensky said yesterday at a meeting in Cyprus at the start of the new presidency, EU presidency, that he can see the war ending by the middle of this year. And in December, he was progressively making small but significant concessions. And we've got to close the gap between these two plans. And a lot of talking is going on. Zelensky is suggesting that he's willing to do a deal and give away a lot of what Russia's asking for. So I think we're in the final mile. It'll probably carry on for a month, maybe longer, but both Trump and Putin are running out of patience. And as I say, the fact that Zelensky said, and he doesn't usually speculate on timelines, that he said it could be done by the end of the first half of this year suggests we're actually quite close to the end, and that he's close to giving up some major concessions that Russia's demanding. Because if he doesn't, then we continue the war for at least 2 years.
Ben, stay with us as we move on over to the United States for our next update. And a US